I'll call the City Council public hearing of October 2nd to order at 6:45. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Ken Jones is absent, Jeff Gard is absent. Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
David Gleason.
I'm here.
Oh, that's a quorum of council.
Okay, tonight's public hearing is on ordinance 1177, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, amending the Cordova Municipal Code 5.12.200 by increasing the local bidder preference from 5% to 15%. And I see no public actually in the audience.
Oh, take a recess.
So we will recess.
Cool picture of some crane.
That's on the public hearing. I'll just check one more time. Is there anyone who would like to speak to ordinance 1177, the ordinance of the City Council increasing the local bidder preference from 5% to 15%? Okay, seeing none, I'll adjourn the public hearing. There we go. My notes on it. I'll call the regular City Council meeting of October 2nd, 2019 to order at 7 o'clock. If you'd please join me in pledging the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Ken Jones is absent, Jeff Gard is absent. Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
David Gleason,
Here.
and William Deaton.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Thank you. We have the approval of the regular agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved as submitted. Does council have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications to disclose? Okay, seeing none, we have communications by and petitions from visitors, and we have a guest speaker this evening, Robin Irving, a retired Alaska Marine Highway System employee, to give us some suggestions on potential options there. Robin, if you could join us up here. Even though we don't have any councilmen online, it helps for the public to use the microphone system, so.
Well, thanks for having me here and for listening to me. And I guess I'd like to start off to thanking our mayor for all the effort he's put into trying to keep ferry service in Cordova and looking at options for the long term for keeping good, valuable infrastructure here. He's written lots of letters of support. He's worked with the deputy commissioner, and I, for one, appreciate that. But I believe that we still have some options in the short term that could help us out at least through January. It could buy us about 4 months of time if we are willing to work with Marine Highway and DOT. And that would be to bring the Tustamina in here at least 1 week a month. And at our public testimony hearing back in August, both the general manager and the operations manager, Captains Falvey and Carvallis, agreed to scrap the winter schedule and start over again. Well, nothing changed. So we need to ask them, where is that schedule? And we need to ask them to reconsider sending the Tustamina. The commissioner of DOT, or the deputy commissioner who's charged with overseeing MHS, was quoted as saying, we considered sending the Tustamina to Cordova, but we don't want her crossing the Gulf of Alaska because she's got some issues with one of her fins is not operational. That fin hasn't been operational for 3 years, and they cross the Gulf of Alaska every single day to go out to Kodiak. So I think that's a lame excuse, and I think we're getting pushed around a little bit by that. I don't think we should stand for that. And the other thing that they have said, well, there's going to be cancellations and weather delays because the Tustamina is getting old and she has a lot more restrictions on what she can sail in. Her restrictions are 20-foot seas and 40-knot winds combined or greater. We don't see that very often, and as a community, we can all live with cancellations and reduced sailing schedules. We can't live without service for 9 or 8 months out of the year. So I think we need, when we hit them up, we need to, they have some really tough budget constraints that they're working under right now. As you know, the governor vetoed that extra $5 million. So we need to help keep them in their comfort zone when we present this and give them some options that, for one, we're not asking them to add any service days to the Tustamina schedule. She's already sailing 7 days a week. And we're not going to change crew schedules at all. They crew change every 2 weeks in Homer. And if they scheduled it correctly, they could come into Prince William Sound for during that off week when they're not doing a crew change. And then we need to ask them to bring the vessel here for at least 7 days out of the month, because that builds in a weather window. So if we do lose a couple sailings, it's not the end of the world. We're still going to get some service. And that 7 days, they can do several loops around Prince William Sound before they have to go back out to Kodiak. And I know there's some fishermen here. It's not a whole lot different to go from Kodiak into Chenega Bay as it is to go from Kodiak to Homer. So I think that wasn't a valid argument on their part, and I think we need to call them out on that. We also need to continue to urge the governor's office. I just spoke with Clay. He's already aware of this, and many of you may be aware that the Copper River Seafoods just got some great recognition with, it was a big national award. What was the award?
It was the 2019 Business of the Year.
Business of the Year. So that's huge. And we can use that as leverage. And now Scott Blake is kind of in the hot seat here to, because the governor actually got to present him that award when he got back from the national award. And that success is in part from great infrastructure in place with the Alaska Marine Highway. So I'm urging you as a body representing the city of Cordova, when you approach the governor's office, you need to use that as leverage. Hey, look, we have this viable, valuable business that depends on valuable infrastructure. And then I always like to point out that communities like Cordova that are dependent on fishing, our business, the fish business, is one of the handful of businesses in the state of Alaska that's taxed, and money that money goes directly into the general fund of the state of Alaska. There's 33 communities along the Alaska Marine Highway, and of those 33 communities, at least 20 of them are valuable commercial fishing communities that are contributing that 1%. Cordova alone generates almost $1 million annually in that 1% tax that goes directly to into the into the state coffers. And if you took collectively places like Kodiak, Chignik, Dutch Harbor, Adak, Juneau, Petersburg, Sitka, those are just a handful of the 33 communities, and you pooled all that together, that fish tax is pretty substantial. And so we all depend on this infrastructure. And I know from having worked on the ferries that the bean counters like to look at passengers as, that's how we generate revenues, how many passengers. Well, the one thing that they continually overlook, I know when I rode ferries in Southeast, and the same is true up here, if you go down to the car deck at any given time, when in the middle of the winter, you might have 20 people riding a boat like the Malaspina, but you go down on the car deck and there's 8 fish vans full of crab from Petersburg, halibut from Sitka, salmon out of Juneau. There's millions of dollars worth of product that are all dependent on that. And so just looking at the passenger counts doesn't cut it. So when we talk to the governor, we need to remind him and point out those things that we are generating tax dollars. We certainly wouldn't think of shutting down the Dalton Highway in the middle of the winter because nobody travels the Dalton Highway, but it's supporting a viable industry. The same as the Richardson Highway, supporting that oil industry down in Valdez. We're not going to shut it down because there aren't a lot of riders. So I think that's just a point that we can give them. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is that the ferries do receive some federal monies in the form of federal highway dollars. And I don't know where that money goes or what it's spent on, but it should be worth asking. And then also, one more point is that the Kennecott was built in part with Exxon Valdez oil spill money. That Kennecott was in Prince William Sound last week twice, and it was pointed out at that hearing that that's the time when we need a vessel, a ferry vessel in Prince William Sound to help move people for SERVS training, our oil spill response training. And we had a vessel that was built with EVOS money, and I think it's a crying shame that they couldn't alter their schedule to come into Cordova and Valdez to help support that. So those are just a couple of points that I had, but mainly I think that we need to continue to fight. We can't let this, we can't let them think that we can get by without it, because as soon as we do that, they're going to say, well, they did it, you know, they're just fine without it, and they're going to continue, because I've seen them make changes like that. You know, once the wheels start turning, it's pretty hard to turn them the other way. So anyway, that's just a couple things I had. So I'm, you know, an insider looking out, and I know it's a top-down organization, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, council?
No, thank you very much.
Councilman Schaefer?
Would it be possible for you to send us your bullet points so when we do that, your sheet that you were
Sure.
talking from, just so, and when we write or talk to our representatives, because we have your lovely bullet points that you've put together.
Yeah, you bet.
That'd be great.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
You bet?
You can send it to me and I can get it.
Yeah.
Okay, you bet.
Thank
I'll
you.
do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any audience comments regarding agenda items for tonight? Seeing none, chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions, CCMC board.
No bad news. Greg Meyer, CCMC chairman. We're still working with PERS. We got all of the employees' payroll just put in. It was a pretty onerous project, I guess, because it's been a while. And the good news is the number I gave you last time looks like it's holding. We just have to get our interest and penalties from them. And we had 150,000 calculated, and I don't see that changing much. So the 1.145 that I gave you should still be a good number, but we have to wait for the final number, and I'll let you know as soon as I can. Negotiations with NVE are going well. They're still in their assessment process, but they're getting a lot of the information exchange between the entities is going really well, and they're asking for more and more and more. So it's building, and I think the wheels on the bus are turning at a pretty good clip. So so far that's all positive. CCMC board and representatives from NVE had a meeting at the hospital with the employees last night, and we just kind of updated them what's going on and fielded questions and provided the answers that we could. We're just so premature that we couldn't give a lot of answers. A lot of their main concern is, am I going to have a job? And we just reassured them that we need everybody. We need everyone to stay. We need a fully operating hospital, and no one, pretty much no one is going to lose their job that doesn't want to. So just tried to reassure them of that. And, anyway, I think it's all going pretty good, and I'll just try to keep you updated. Any questions? Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
The school board representative? I don't see one here tonight, but we do have a student council representative, Mr. Deaton. you have a report for us?
Yes, the student council met yesterday, and so some of the things we discussed was a winter dance, and they wanted the senior class to take that on, but that has not been discussed by us yet, so we don't know how that's going to go. We had our first pep rally of the year, which was for cross country. We went to regionals last weekend. We did fairly good. The boys team is going to state, as well as Anika Witzo and Amy Hamburger, so we're going to represent Cordova well. The vaping awareness campaign will continue throughout the year. We were approached by a community member to man a table at the Cordova Child and Family Wellness Fair. It was discussed, but no decision was made because most of the students in student council are going to be taking the SAT on that day. So we don't know how that's going to go, but hopefully someone will man that table. And that's all we have to report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council? Thank you.
Thank you.
And usually, recognizing that you're a high school student and you probably have homework and other commitments, you're free to leave early, like now if you'd like to, and you're also welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Approval of the consent calendar, we only have one item. Does council want to remove that one item to the regular agenda? Okay, roll call vote.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
Ken Jones is absent. Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
David Allison.
Yes.
David Gleason.
Yes.
And Tom Baylor.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, approval of the minutes of the September 18th regular meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion, a second. Is there any changes, additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved as submitted. Consideration of bids. We do have one request for a 2019 mini excavator in the amount of $130,970.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to approve the purchase. Discussion, would you like to speak to the motion, Councilman Gleason?
Yeah, it's getting paid for by the water and the sewer. Yeah, water and sewer. They're paying for it out of their appreciation accounts, which is cool. So I'll be in favor of this.
Councilman Schaefer.
I don't know much about backhoes and mini excavators, but would we be losing any functionality by switching from the backhoe to the excavator, or no? No. Do all the same things? And do you know how much money, ballpark, we spend on renting equipment and also just in repairing our old equipment?
So the mini excavator that we rented this year was $4,000 a month.
Okay.
And you have to get it to and from Anchorage.
Mhm.
The backhoe, as it says in the memo, is old. It does get repaired a lot, and it always wants to break when there's something that needs to be used for. I don't have a cost. I could come up with that probably through the streets mechanics department. And the functionality of the mini excavator is better than the backhoe. Just the agility and the ability to get into smaller, the reach is different. So.
Councilman Allison, then Meyer, then Baylor.
Yeah, couple of questions. Are we currently renting the excavator, or is it been sent back already?
I believe it was supposed to go back this week. We talked about it at the PW meeting Tuesday, and Bill said it was going back this week.
So how critical is this piece of equipment to get now versus during the regular budget cycle is where I'm getting at, I guess.
Okay, so the reason it's on right now, and I should have had put that in the memo, is that it is in Anchorage right now. It is on the ground in Anchorage. I don't really want to wait till January to put it in to ask for this contract again, because it takes 8 months to get here. It's like the garbage truck. Well, they say 8 months or 6 months, and then it's 8 months, and then it's.
Okay, that's nowhere in the
I know. I
notes
didn't.
that it's in a.
I know. Yeah, that was
critical
my.
that we need to order ahead of time and
Yeah, that
such
was
and
my
such.
bad.
But that's my only thing is that, you know, we do things out of budget cycle, even if it's the enterprise funds paying their own way, which this is, I appreciate that. But if it's not a critical piece or for critical reasons, then things really need to be put in the budget. But with those answers, you know, it takes 8-month lead time, and we've got one sitting there that's ready for us to take now, then yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Councilman Meyer, Vice Mayor Meyer.
So are you going to be able to get rid of the old backhoe that needs to have parts from vintage warehouses? Is that going to be going away?
I don't know if anybody will want it.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
curious if we're going to be, if it is indeed going to be a replacement and not work alongside of
No,
it. Okay.
they have a love-hate relationship with the backhoe. They'll probably have a party when it leaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we're not
I just don't know
piling
that
up old or
anybody will want to invest in it.
Councilman Baylor.
So what is Sourcewell? How does that work?
Sourcewell is a agency that goes out and does state, municipality, and I think federal too. And it does it across the board for a multiple different kinds of equipment, all kinds of things. And it's just like the state contract where they go out to bid and they get the best value, and then they lock in that contract with, you know, like Jim Lackey's company goes through the Sourcewell contract to get the best price. And in the brochure, you can see where the Sourcewell decreases.
Do you see the other bids, or they just represent one bid to you? Okay. All right, so I guess, you know, you need the equipment, you need it, but I guess where I'm hung up on is, I guess I spoke to both of our local contractors here in town, and neither of them ever buy new equipment. They always look at the auctions, and you can get something 2 years old. And I said, well, what are you looking at price-wise? And said, you should be able to pick something up like $75,000. Now, I don't know, I haven't looked it up, but I'm not going to support this just for the fact that I think we should look at that option. If we do need this piece of equipment, there are a couple of them here local we could rent in emergency, but that's a huge savings, and that also tells you that there's that much depreciation on a piece of new equipment right away. And the amount of hours that we're going to put on this, I think it would do well to get one that's maybe 1 or 2 years old. At least have that option and present that as well as the new price. But so I guess I look at the professionals that are doing this all the time, and they don't buy new.
Where do they get the equipment from?
Online, at the auctions, there's,
Where are the auctions? Where does it come from?
well,
Down south?
they could be anywhere from Fairbanks to Anchorage to Seattle to California. As long as you stay on the I-5, it's not a big deal. If you bought something, let's say in Southern California, it ships it up to Seattle and ships to here. You could talk with John Bannon. They multiple pieces that way. But so I think that's a huge potential savings. Even though it's an enterprise fund, it's still community's dollars. So that's where I'd like to see it go, look at.
I think everybody's spoken. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next item is the reports of
Do
officers.
you have the amended one?
oh,
Excuse me.
We have an amended agenda, remember? I think I put it in front of you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Or should we have approved the amended
Mr.
agenda or?
No,
Doesn't
because
matter.
I amended it previously,
Before.
so it did.
Mr.
go
Mayor?
like this.
Yes, Councilman Meyer.
I move to go into executive session to discuss terms of the city manager employment agreement with Helen Howarth, subjects which may be considered matters of immediate knowledge, intimate knowledge of which would clearly have an adverse effect on finances of the government.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll give just a minute to clear the room to go
we
into
can go
executive
in
session. We can do. Okay, council's out of executive session now. The item discussed was the city manager employment agreement with Helen Howarth, and no action was taken in executive session. So, Councilman Allison.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council approves the city manager employment agreement effective October 2nd, 2019 between the city of Cordova and Helen Howarth.
Second.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Allison.
I have a few amendments that I'll just wrap into one if I could.
Yes, please.
I'd like to, the effective date is October 2nd with Helen Howarth. And under 2 term, October 2nd, 2019, and shall expire on January 15th, 2023. And then under compensation, I'd like to make that 130,000. And Section 8 benefits, we need to have the attorney change the wording of that to similar to Manager Robertson. She's going to waive the city's insurance, and that's the reason for the compensation change.
Okay.
So I think the wording is out there, and the attorney and you can work on that.
Okay.
Is that okay as a motion?
Yeah.
And then the last thing was under
15.
15. Yeah, under 15, on the last sentence, insert the word written in between prior and approval. So that says without prior written approval of the city council.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the manager's contract and a second. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I guess just to clarify for the record that the dates, we basically wanted a 3-year contract with a not ending right at budget time like it has the last couple of times, so we extended that out to January 15th of 2023, so it's a little more than a 3-year contract. The additional 10,000 compensation was in lieu of waiving the insurance, right? So then we just want to be sure that everything was in writing, so we can't have a he said, she said type thing in the future. So those were the reasons for the modifications.
Any further discussion? Okay, and just for clarification, she'll start as an employee on October 2nd, but her official duties as manager won't start until October 18th. So Ellen Lanning will be manager through October 17th, and then she would start as a manager on the 18th. Okay. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, just to further clarify that, that's that was our intent, is that Manager Lanning's contract goes through the 16th, 17th. Manager Lanning is the manager. Until then, he's for anybody that has any questions about who's the manager, Manager Lanning is, and until that date, Ms. Howarth is in a learning capacity or a transitional capacity until that date. So,
Okay. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the contract as amended?
Well, no,
We have-
just the amendment
Yeah.
first, and
Oh,
that
yeah,
can
that's
be,
right.
and that can be
On
a
the-
voice.
all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the contract approval should be by roll call.
Yeah. Okay. Approval of the, is there any further discussion on the contract as amended? Okay, roll call vote for approval of the amended contract.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Ken Jones is absent. Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
and Jeff Guard is absent. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. So we have reports of officers. Starting with me, I will mention, I just recalled, I've reached out to First Alaskans, their chair, 2 or 3 times, and I haven't had a response. So I'll just put that back in my radar. And that was to request a visit. They had offered to come and provide training on tribal governance, which has implications for a relationship with working with them. So I've been asked to request that, and I'll do so again. Let's see where my notes are here. And that's really all I had, unless there's any questions on my written report. Okay. Manager's report.
Well, you know what, I've been working on the budget and trying to wrap up some personnel issues. I've spent a little time with Helen trying to transition some things, and we're going to be scheduled for next Monday as well, Monday and Tuesday as well, and I'll try to hand off things as best I can. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, council?
Just comment. Thank you very much for working with Helen. She mentioned that you've been more than gracious. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Clerk's report?
I don't have anything except what's in my written report and things that we can talk about at pending agenda.
Any questions, council? Okay, thank you. We have correspondence as noted in the packet.
Just a comment on one, and it's,
Councilman Bailey.
if it's the will of the council, at some point, maybe in November, take up the issue of the spending authority. But maybe we can put that, speak to it on pending agenda.
Okay. Then ordinances and resolutions. The first item is ordinance 1177, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, amending Cordova Municipal Code 5.12.200 by increasing the local bidder preference from 5% to 15%. Second reading.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to it, Councilman Allison?
Yeah, just pretty much a repeat from last meeting on first reading. 15%, I think, is appropriate, given that it helps the opportunity for that money to stay in town, and that money can go around and around instead of going straight out of town somewhere. So I think it's a worthwhile thing to do, and I will be supporting it.
Further discussion? Councilman Meyer.
I'm going to support this tonight. I guess I was reading through the packet and was thinking about it too, is, you know, maybe if we need to adjust it. I think we are kind of going from 5% to 15, which seems kind of like a big percentage jump. And maybe I'd be a little bit more comfortable with 10% to start off the bat, just because I'm not sure how the pros and cons of it all. But I think if we decide we need to change it to 10%, we can do that later on down the line. So I'll support it this evening. But I did have some reservations on maybe that number, and if we were just kind of picking a number, or what all the implications of it could be. Because I know when we are bringing other people from out of town, we are collecting sales tax maybe in different ways when they come into town. And we do have a pretty high bed tax that we collect on them as well. So I don't know all of the reasons why it maybe should be that high, but I think I'll support it at 15 just for now, and we can re-examine it later down the line.
Okay, further discussion, council? All those in favor?
It's a
Aye.
roll call.
Oh,
Sorry, second
sorry.
reading
I looked right at it and saw a roll call. Roll call, please.
David Allison.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
David Gleason.
Yes.
And Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Resolution 10-19-41 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing an amendment to fiscal year 19 budget in the amount of $130,970 to purchase a midi excavator.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to it, Councilman Gleason?
Nope.
Is there further discussion, Council? Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, again, I'll be voting no on this, and it's not to doubt them whether they need the equipment. I think there's a better way to procure this equipment, so.
Okay. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, once again, for this meeting, these kind of things belong in the budget. And I'd prefer to see it in the budget. I will support it this time because of the reasons Sam spoke to, but in the future, things need to be in the budget if they're not an emergency item, so.
Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, next item is Resolution 10-19-42, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova authorizing the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Robertson, Monagle, and Ista for federal lobbying services in the amount of $3,750 per month.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councilman Allison?
Actually, I'd like the mayor to speak to it real quick, if you could.
Basically, I contacted Southeast Conference and asked them about their port and facility improvements. I'd seen that a lot of other communities had port and facility improvements, and basically they said just about every community, coastal community that's had harbor renovations and so forth has gotten a federal lobbyist to carry their grant applications and so forth for them. And Brad Gilman and Associates, this firm is the firm that has represented most of those communities. And so I had a chance, I go back to Washington, D.C. periodically, and I had a chance to meet with them. There were some other firms that expressed some interest, and I asked them about, basically, I know the city generally likes to go through a bid process, but this is kind of a firm that specializes in this. And there were other firms that said they might be interested, but they acknowledged that this was a specialist firm and that this is their niche, and they didn't object to those services or to sole sourcing it. So I guess my feeling is, since you asked, is that firms generally won't pick one thing that they'll represent you for. If a lobbying firm is going to, as they become familiar with your community, they're going to lobby for a lot of things. And for example, this firm is advocated for the municipal piece of this pink salmon disaster because they represent 8 or 10 other coastal communities. They just do that collectively for them. So I know the council had mentioned that they would like to carve it out and do something specific, but this is what they're proposing, and I feel like it's pretty much targeted at harbor renovations, and that it should probably come out of the Harbor Enterprise Fund to pay for it. I just think it creates a level playing field for harbor renovation funds at the federal level are competitive. That's just the way the federal government's working these days. And I think you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage when you're looking for tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure upgrades to not have professionals like this working the ground and keeping your projects at the top of the stack. So that's all.
Thank you. Was a couple of questions, I guess. Are these funds, well, maybe we don't know yet, but we can certainly keep track of these funds, and if the disaster funds could fund something like this, that's maybe a possibility.
I think, so you can't use federal funds for lobbying,
Okay.
but if those disaster funds are applied towards the work, it's going to free up enterprise funds to do
Right.
that. So,
Okay.
um,
All right, yeah, I support it. I think, that's under 1% of what the small end of what we're asking for. And certainly way less than that on the high end that we'd like to get. So I think it's an expense that other people are making that want this money, and if we don't, we're at a competitive disadvantage for those funds. So I think we have to try every way we can to bring that money in. I support it.
Councilman Vice Mayor Meyer.
Where is the money going to be coming from? Did you say that it was going to come out of the Harbor Enterprise Fund, or are we taking it out of the general fund?
I think council is generally pretty good about defining where you pay for something from, but I was just suggesting that might be the appropriate place. Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I'm not going to support this either. I would support having the money in the budget, and then once the new city manager gets on board and gets caught up with things, and maybe make some inquiries with some of these towns and communities down the line, and see if they do have lobbyists and if they've had success, and move forward with it. But I think with the tight, was over $1 million we're going to be short on our budget. $40,000 is, it's a start. I would prefer that if we want to set some money aside in the budget and look at this later, but I can't support going into a contract at this point without a little more information and maybe input from the new city manager.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I probably too. I would agree with you, Councilmember Baylor, that I wouldn't approve the whole 50,000 out of budget like this either. But we're looking at a few months at the beginning of the federal budget cycle that is when they're going to spend a majority of their money and make a lot of their decisions. So I think we need to get right on it. And if there wasn't a 30-day out clause on this contract, I would consider it more towards the budget. But since there isn't, I think it's worth spending for 3 months and then putting it in our budget and seeing if the harbor wants to pay that, or how we're going to pay for that at that point in time. But for right now, I think we need to get on the stick right as soon as we can. So I will support it.
Councilman Schaefer.
Is there time sensitivity due to the federal budget calendar?
I think in the last year there's been 5 federal packages go out there. Those are already out on the street, and there's people competing for them. So
Already.
there's like the transportation package. Congress only does that once every 5 years. So
And so if this were to be approved, would we start immediately, or would it begin in November? I'm just trying time-wise, how the process goes.
I think it starts the minute you approve the contract.
I think the real trick here right now is the build grant. We have that in the pipeline.
Yep.
We paid $28,000 for the preparation of that, which I failed to put in the budget, but I hope you'll do again next year. And it's imperative because their budget year starts September 1st. So they're just getting into their budgets, they award in December. So any help that we can get prior to December is to our advantage.
Councilman Gleason.
I think I already put Sam on the spot for this once, and she said she didn't know. I have talked to Tony, though, and he's spoken to other harbor masters and said that it wasn't worth it. So I would like to hear, from him definitely on whether they want to pay for this person, but he's not here for once. So is there a way we can put this off for one more meeting?
Well, yeah, council can do what you want.
I'm not really sold on it. I don't want, from what he said, I'm not sold on it. I think Tom kind of brought up a good point that we're already $1 million in the hole.
So I guess it would just be, they've offered, this has come up off and on, they've offered to call in and give a presentation or, I guess it'd just be good to know what council wants there, so. Councilman Allison.
I'd just like if council can indulge, if we could ask Student Council Rep Deaton to give us his thoughts. He spent 6 months in the federal legislature recently, and what he thinks about, if he get his opinion on.
Is there any objection, council?
No.
Not to put
Okay.
you on the spot, but if you've got any comments.
I did not witness any lobbying while I was there. My duties were on the floor of the Senate. I was not working in the office buildings where they would be doing that. That said, I think it should be your decision. You should make this decision. I was not elected by the people of Cordova to make these financial decisions like you guys were, so.
You are a smart
A
man.
politician in the making. Okay,
I mean, sorry.
Councilman Schaefer.
I mean, if they'd be willing to give a short presentation too about what types of services they provide, I think that would be helpful at the next, if this could be pushed off to the next meeting and maybe get more information from.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, and again, I think I'd like to see our incoming city manager take a good look at this too. She might have some opinion on it. So with that being said, I would make a motion to refer this back to staff, and that way it can come back at any time when we get more information.
I'd second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to refer to staff. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, and get reports from our new city manager and our harbor master.
Yeah.
And see if they can do a presentation, have all of that information available at the next meeting.
Okay, Councilman Meyer.
The other thing I would maybe like cleared up too, to see if this, because it's going to be, sounds like really focused on that build grant for the harbor and waterfront development, that it could come out of their budget rather than our general fund. We did raising some money for all that, and I think that could probably come out of their enterprise fund. Then I could support it maybe a little bit more.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to refer? All those in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Okay, motion's referred back to staff, the resolution. Resolution 10-19-43, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, supporting the Native Village of Eax Shepherd Point Oil Spill Response Facility project and attaining military assistance via the Innovative Readiness Training Program.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councilman Meyer?
Just kind of like it says in here, council has done several resolutions in the past supporting them. This project, NVE is supporting us with a couple projects and grants. I think that a letter of support for their big project would be helpful for the relationship and also this project that they have going.
Okay. Further discussion? Councilman Baylor.
Well, only in Cordova, 2 weeks ago, I heard that they were walking away from this project totally, so. The rumor mill is great around here. But I agree with your comments. I think we have in the past. I don't think we're doing anything groundbreaking or new, so.
Other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, resolution carries. We don't have any unfinished business noted. Under new and miscellaneous business, we have pending agenda. And Susan, did you mention you had a couple items?
Well, so we had talked about starting to meet with the school for a joint work session, and then we talked about maybe doing it twice a year. So I thought we should just put that on a schedule somewhere. And initially, we talked about next week, thinking, I don't know, that our 2 Wednesdays were booked with budget, but if you guys want to do budget instead next week, we kind of, just talking around the office, we thought maybe we should let Helen get on and work on budget for a while first. And if we did maybe the one with the school in November before their meeting, I thought that would be good. They're waiting to hear from us on it.
Well,
And then I thought maybe if you see, did I write it here? I thought maybe twice a year, November before our budget, and then like April or May before they're doing their budget would be good times to touch base with each other.
Councilman Baylor.
well, I guess I would ask the manager, what is he, you know, he needs information on his budget, right? I mean, we've got to come up with some, do we not?
Well, I think within the scope of the decision, there's a minimum and a maximum by state law. And you can pick any number you want in between there within your budget. And that's what I put in our budget. You know, last year you went 175. So I don't think it really makes any difference to us. It's what we can afford, and it's how it's distributed to them that makes the difference.
I guess I'm just trying to get my head clear on when we're gonna, I mean, we've talking about cuts or possible taxes. I mean, when are we gonna address those issues in regards to the budget? So,
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I think, I don't think we need to meet with the school until we decide what our priorities are.
yeah,
Um,
and I'm sure they'll
As
be
long as
here.
we're
when
giving
we
them the
discuss
most
it.
money we can, they're, you know, or giving them the maximum, they're not gonna have much to say to us either.
Right.
So, anyway, we need to have our discussion on the budget first.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Whether that happens
So
next
still on-
Wednesday or when we do that,
Yeah.
We're still on for Wednesday next for that. And then there was also James's letter on,
Well, wait, so are we doing a budget work session on the 9th, just alone? And we'll tell the school that November for a joint work session? Can we pick November 13th before their school board meeting? And do you feel like we'll need every Wednesday of the month for ourselves, or should we be ready by then? Especially if we meet October 9th and 16th and do budget. I don't know.
probably no more after Wednesday.
No more after, what?
After we
Council-
meet Wednesday, we'll probably.
We could probably pencil it in. I mean,
Yeah.
pencil it in for November 13th, and we'll just see how the city's progresses.
Okay.
So keep it as a placeholder.
October also has 5
It does.
Wednesdays, so.
I see that.
Councilman Schaefer?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
But did we say that we are doing the 9th, and what time do you want to do? Because we don't have a meeting, so we'll just,
In that day,
Mhm.
so maybe at this normal time.
5:30 or 6? 6? Alan, do you want to do like 6 to 8 for work session in a week? Good with you?
Yep.
Everybody okay?
I'll be on the
Yeah.
phone.
Okay.
And
We could do 5 maybe, because there's a chance that I actually might be calling in for that.
yeah,
Even though I get in that day.
and I forgot to mention on my mayor's report, I'll be out. I'll be traveling from October 8th to 18th.
Oh,
So
maybe I'll.
I would miss the 9th and the 16th. So
Are you going to be here the 16th for the regular?
That
Anyway, we
I'm,
can-
yeah, I'm not sure actually about.
I'll be back by then, but
Uh,
I'll have to be by the phone. I'm not sure. I'd be able to make it. I have an appointment at 4.
Okay.
I don't know when it'll be done. It'll be done by.
Are you on the East Coast or something? Is that what's going on? No.
No,
You'll be
I'm going
here.
up for medical. It's not my.
Okay,
medical,
so-
but I don't-
6,
6
okay,
o'clock on the 9th.
6.
And then we want to pencil one in for 6 o'clock on the 16th before the regular
Okay.
meeting. Okay.
Um,
Councilman Schaefer or Baylor?
Planning.
Oh,
Well,
Alan.
I'd
Alan.
just like to add that, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be Wednesday, because you're really getting down to brass tacks here, and you know, having 4 council members present, you know, really leaves it up in the air for a further vote. Whatever day, I think it's really important for the next couple of meetings that you try to, you know, can't dictate that, but have 7 members present, because there's some big decisions if you're going to do taxing authority and spending, going to be pretty important.
Mhm.
You know, when our strategic planning was most productive when we had everybody there and we could really understand the direction of the group. Because, you know, a couple members absent can derail any decision that you want to do.
That's a good point. So,
So for my part, the first half of October is open. For those of you that are leaving, I'll have to set your dates.
Yeah, I'm around.
I'm gone the
all of
9th,
October.
12th,
Ann's here,
the 13th.
Dave,
I'll be here the
But Abel
16th.
on
I
the
leave the
phone.
17th.
Yeah.
So the 16th would be 2 Wednesdays from
Are
now.
you here until then?
Yeah, I just leave for a few days on the 17th, but I'll be here for is that what we're saying? We're gonna meet at our regular meeting time?
We're just-
So in the hopes that more people show up.
I
No,
just
we're
feel
Well,
like
let's-
Wednesdays are their
Potential
3
enemies.
days because they're used to doing.
yeah,
it.
let's go ahead and pencil them in, and then just email and email sooner rather than later, and let's make sure we can try to get a full slate.
Jeff's
Yep.
dealing with a death in the family, so I
Yeah.
don't know if he's back in time for the 9th, and Ken's on vacation, so, but I'm not 100% sure when he's back either.
Okay.
A lot of people to keep track of.
And then pending agenda on the manager's spending authority, and just,
Just put it on there.
yeah, we just put it on the next regular meeting agenda.
I'll put it on for a discussion on the next
Yeah.
meeting agenda.
Think so. It's a fairly straightforward. I think the idea is that when we were building the Cordova Center and had a lot of expenses, it expanded that spending authority, and the council's just looking at,
It's in code though, so
Yeah.
it's not that straightforward.
yeah, that's right. It's got a code, it'd have to be modified, so.
It's kind of a bigger deal.
Okay,
So you want an ordinance changing code to 10,000 on the next meeting?
well, no, I think maybe a discussion and maybe a copy of that section of the code so council has a chance to look
Okay.
at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that sound good, council?
Yes.
Okay.
You nailed it.
And then the other item was,
I forgot.
we had another item we're looking at for pending agenda. Oh, it was just, I guess a referral to staff would just be when staff is prepared to bring it back for the agenda, so, okay. Anything else on pending agenda, council? Okay, hearing none, audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, council comments. I'll start to my left, Vice Mayor Meyer.
No comments. I'm good.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, just thank people for their work. I'd like to welcome Alan Ward, and Alan will be here for the next meeting, correct? So I'll save any comments regarding that. For that, thanks for coming and participating, Mr. Deaton. It's always good to have a student here that represents that side too, so thank you.
Councilman Gleason.
Just say thanks for the people that showed up. Welcome, Helen. And thanks for William to come and sit at our table.
Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, also welcome to Helen. And Alan, thanks for putting the first draft of the budget together. Good start.
Councilman Baylor.
yeah, I echo all those comments, and yeah, thanks for the good news on the budget. And the staff, appreciate everybody.
What they said.
Okay, and I won't be here at the next meeting, so I just want to extend my appreciation, Alan, for your service for the last 3 years. It's been a tough 3 years with our budget cycles being under a lot of pressure from state funding, and we've managed to keep the boat afloat and provide good services. So thank you. Next item is executive session.
I don't think